What's going on, everybody? You tuned in to another edition of Cutting the Red Tape. I got a special guest with me today. She has done a lot in the veteran community, and I'm sure you're all going to be pleased to hear her story. Before we jump into this, please do me a favor. If you can, like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. We are upwards of 200 subscribers. Trying to hit that 1,000 subscriber mark so we can go ahead and have a permanent funding source to be able to support veterans and service members out there with our mission of food, lodging, transportation, and resources for mental health and substance abuse. So if you can, please do me a favor. And like I said, subscribe. So with that out of the way, our special guest, I will go ahead and let her introduce herself. Go ahead.
My name is Kim Skelton. I'm originally from the state of Ohio, city of Cincinnati. I am currently living in Arizona. I am a Marine Corps veteran, 1979 to 1990. I was 5937 aviation radio repair.
Awesome. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your upbringing in Ohio. Tell us what that was like and if any of those experiences geared you into joining the military.
So during the time that I was growing up in Ohio, I spent the first few years in a segregated school back in the 60s. And then we moved to an area where the school system was integrated. I graduated from Wyoming High School. During my high school years, my grandparents were ill, so I spent a lot of time taking care of them. My grades tanked at that point in time, so college wasn't an option for me. And I decided at that point that I would join the military so that I could get some type of a trade or skill.
Okay.
My father was an Air Force veteran. So the Air Force was one of the branches that I had considered along with the Navy. And when I went in to talk to either the Navy recruiter or the Air Force recruiter, they were both at lunch. So I tell people I miss being in the Air Force and the Navy by a sandwich.
There you go. Air Force and Navy lunch is more important. See, there you go. Perfect. Perfect.
So
So,
at the time that I went in, the Marine Corps recruiter was the only one that was there.
okay.
And when he discovered that I hadn't already signed anything with the Navy and the Air Force, at that point, his statement was, "Step into my office." And the rest is history.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So, where did you ship off to? Are you Hollywood or did you go East Coast? Where were you at?
Okay, so being a female Marine at the time, the only training place was at Parris Island.
Okay.
So I went to Parris Island in September of 1979. I graduated in November of 1979, and I was sent to 29 Palms for school.
29 Palms. I'm sure it was just as bad back then as it still is now.
I was stationed in 29 Palms twice.
Ah. So just to kind of go back, so you said you went from a segregated school to an integrated school.
Yes.
How did that affect you, I guess, going into the military? What was your experience like in the military, being in that environment?
Um, it opened my eyes to a lot of other things. At the time that I switched schools, I was like third grade. So I really didn't understand exactly what was going on. But in going into the military, um, there was so much diversity,
Right.
that I started to learn about other people and other cultures besides what was in the textbooks.
Right. And that's one thing I tell people all the time. You have such a melting pot of cultures. You just, by just being there, you learn so much just about different people, how they operate, their backgrounds. And it really is a eye opener. And you begin to have that, brother and sisterhood as you go forward. So
Yeah.
as you graduated through boot camp, what was your time like in 29 Palms?
Stepping back a little bit, at the time that I joined, I'm an only child.
Oh, okay.
And I went in shortly after Vietnam. in 1979. So it was not a popular thing to do. At the time I went in, got to 29 Palms for school. There were very few women in the Marine Corps at the time. So I went through all of my training schools in 29 Palms, went through the basic electronics, and then went on to my MOS schools. It was probably about a year and a half worth of school that I went through. From there, I went to Cherry Point. And the unit that I checked into at Cherry Point, there were two other females in my unit. So that was a good thing for me to see too. I was stationed there for about a year and a half. Got deployed to Puerto Rico. Once I left Cherry Point, I got stationed on Okinawa, which I tried to fight going. And, we all know that trying to fight orders doesn't mean a thing.
Yeah, it gotta happen.
So I ended up on Okinawa for 12 months. And the first few months I sat there and I was upset about being there. I didn't want to be there. And then I decided it was only going to be as good as I made it.
Right.
So at that point, I started to kind of get out and do things. And I ended up extending twice. So I was there for a total of 3 years.
Wow.
During the time that I was there, when I initially checked in, there were no other females in my unit. So, they couldn't even tell me when the last time was that they had had a female in the unit.
Wow. Wow.
By the time I left, I think there were 4 of us. And during the time that I was there, I got deployed 3 times to South Korea.
Gotcha. So that's interesting. You said there wasn't that many women and it wasn't very popular at the time. If you kind of looking back and going back, did you see actually many women who wanted to step up and help out and go, fight for the country? Or was that just something just because it was so negatively viewed that people were kind of staying away from it?
That's a hard question for me to answer. Just because the high school that I ended up graduating from was one where people were more college bound.
Okay.
That I'm aware of, it was myself and one other female that went to the military. I'm only aware of about 3 of the males that went to the military from that particular high school.
Right.
So I think a lot of it was just mostly women were not military bound in general.
Okay. So you hit South Korea. What was that experience like? Like obviously it's ending of obviously Vietnam, and I mean you've seen the stories, you hear people coming back. What was that feeling like when you hit South Korea?
It was cold. So all the Korean War veterans that I've talked to about their experiences over there, I will confirm every bit of cold that they talked about.
Right. Being here from Arizona, so it's cold.
And I had better, cold weather gear than they did. And it was still cold.
Wow.
They were deployments. Like anything else, you're sleeping in tents, you're sleeping in the mud. It was just part of the deployment experience.
Right. So did you at any point like say, all right, did it hit you like, hey, this is still an area where I can, still be killed? Is it still hostile? What were those thoughts going through your head?
There were times not only there, but some of the other smaller deployments that I had. We would set up in an area, on the edge of the woods. We've got all the camouflage netting put up. There were times the helicopters and the planes were flying over. And yes, there were times that it crossed my mind, this could be very real. I understand, at this moment that it's a deployment, it's a training exercise. But yes, it could easily be very real. The job that I had while I was in the Marine Corps was radio repair. And what I did was I repaired the radios that they used on the ground to guide the planes to their targets.
Wow. So that's obviously something that's needed. If we have, need close air support or air support, we need somebody to fix broken radios or
Right.
radios that are jacked up. So thank you for that.
Right.
Now, did you work closely with any of the Korean military at all?
We had an interpreter with us, that kind of led us and guided us through a few things, but no real direct experiences with the Rock Marines.
Okay. Okay. And how long was your deployment in Korea?
Each one of the deployments was approximately 30 days,
Okay.
and I went 3 different times.
Okay. Was there an option for you to extend while you were there, or did you have to come back stateside and then redeploy?
It was a unit deployment from Okinawa.
Okay.
So there were no options to extend. The unit would go over for approximately the 30 days, maybe just slightly less than the 30 days. We'd go back to Okinawa because I kept extending my time on Okinawa. Every time that 1 year mark rolled around, we were on our way back.
All right. All right. Okay. Now, what was time like in Okinawa?
I absolutely loved it once I decided to get out and, do some things, experience the culture. I had decided to live off base while I was there.
Okay.
So I was actually out in the community.
All right.
Um, one of the best experiences I've ever had.
What are some things that made you love it?
I would say mostly the people. I got to know a lot of the nationals. So I would hang out with them and they would teach me a lot of different things, good and bad.
Okay. All right.
So just mostly the people,
Okay.
but also at the same time, there were things that I saw and experienced that I never would have gotten from a textbook.
Right. So let's talk about that. So being from Ohio and then going to, you said, Wisconsin, what were the major differences between Okinawa culture in Ohio and Wisconsin?
Okay, never lived in Wisconsin.
What was it?
Um, Cincinnati,
Cincinnati, excuse me, in
Cincinnati,
Cincinnati.
Ohio. hmm
Okay.
So it was different in that a lot of my experience in Ohio was primarily black and white, literally. If you weren't black, you were white. And that was the way you were categorized. That was the label that was placed on you. During the time I was on Okinawa, I was a Marine, I was a female, and it pretty much stayed at that, and people got to know me and they treated me the way they treated me because of who they decided that I was, the type of person that they decided I was, not because of some label that had
Right.
been placed on me, outside of being a female or being a Marine.
Okay. So that being said, you stated that you get out. So from there, when you actually leave the Marine Corps, did you actually go back to the United States and then go back to living in Okinawa, or how did that work out?
Okay, so once I got finished being on Okinawa, I got restationed in 29 Palms the second time.
Okay.
And I was there for a total of about 5 years, 4.5 years the last time. I got out, I got married. I lived in California for a while longer. From there, I actually moved to Arizona, lived up in the Phoenix area. At that point, I had my 3 children.
Mhm.
From Arizona, my husband's job transferred us a lot. So from Arizona, we went to Illinois,
Wow.
we went to Michigan, we went back to California.
Wow.
Um, my kids graduated high school in California. All 3 went on to college someplace. And then once I got divorced, I moved back to Arizona.
Okay. So a lot. You've been over a lot of different states going back
I've,
and forth.
I've moved cross country and lived internationally.
All right. And you decided to stay in Arizona where it's 130 degrees.
I'm here to stay. I'm a desert rat at heart.
I agree. I'm right there with you. So let's fast forward a little bit. Obviously, you do a lot with the community. I know you do a lot with the community. Just kind of share with our audience here, what got you into continuing to support our veterans and service members?
I think a lot of it ended up coming from my father, um, who was an Air Force veteran, 100% disabled. Um, during the time that I was in California, I kind of reconnected with the veterans organizations. While my kids were little, I just kind of stayed away from all that and I was mom. But once I kind of restarted connecting with the veterans organization, moved back to Arizona this last time, my dad was ill and I started caring for him. And I came to realize there were a lot of things about the veterans, especially the VA, that I wasn't aware of. And I considered myself to be like your average veteran. But there were things that I just didn't know. And there were things that my dad couldn't explain to me, So I had an opportunity to start working for the Arizona Department of Veteran Service as a veterans benefits counselor. And at that point, I started to learn the ins and outs of the VA and disability claims and everything that goes along with it. So now I am able to assist veterans and be able to explain to the veterans things that I didn't understand and things that weren't explained to me.
Right. And I think that's very important because I think a lot of us get out and, you know, you may go talk to the VA doctors or you may do what you have to do when you get out, but you don't quite understand uh, maybe what you qualify for or injuries or things that happen that, you can get assistance with. And so I'm glad, you did that and you do that to support our military members out there.
I was one of those veterans that when I got out, I was told that I didn't qualify for VA health care because my household income was too high.
Wow.
And I was told that for the first 30 years after my discharge, and in becoming a veterans benefits counselor, I discovered that there were things that I could apply for disability, and there were other ways of getting into the VA healthcare system. So that's what I explain to a lot of the veterans now that are also being told that they don't qualify because their household incomes are too high.
So what kind of feeling does that give you when someone comes to you and says, "Hey, thank you so much for helping me fill out this paperwork. Now everything is in order. I'm getting the benefits I now deserve." What kind of feeling does that give you?
It's great. It's one of those things for some of the veterans, it's actually a life-changing experience, and they come back and they share with me how life has changed, because of having the extra money that comes along with the disability benefit. Even for some of the surviving spouses, helping them to attain benefits in some cases prevents them from losing their houses.
Right.
So they come back and they share all those experiences with me, and it makes the day worthwhile for me. That's one of the things that makes me want to get up and go back the next day to see if I can find another veteran to help.
Fantastic. Do you ever get any puzzled looks when you tell maybe some of the Vietnam veterans that I was in Korea too? I was right there. You ever get any shocked
Yeah,
looks?
I do. Probably no more than the shock looks I get telling people that I'm a Marine in the first place.
There you go.
But my experiences in Korea were not directly because of war. It was in Korean defense.
But still,
You
yeah.
so that's different too. But it's also a way for the veterans to be able to relate to me, in explaining to me conditions that they have going on, things that they have going on, and trying to figure out whether or not they can apply for disability benefits. There's a better connection there, and they're more likely to open up to me things that they wouldn't tell somebody else.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So, along with doing that, you also are part of several other veteran organizations. Uh, why do you continue to assist in those capacities as well?
I believe it's important to get out into the community. A lot of non-veterans still really don't have the concept of females in the military. And the ones that they do are more used to like the Iraq, Afghanistan, veterans that may be in their late 20s, early 30s.
Mhm.
Um, the females like myself that are a bit older, there's really no concept that we were in the military at the time that we were.
Right.
So I think it's important to get out there. I used to work in a couple of different school systems, and the kids were aware of me being a Marine. And for some of the girls, it was something that they had never seen before.
Wow.
They had never seen a female veteran. So I was able to sit down and talk to them. A couple of the schools that I worked at had junior ROTC programs. And there were times that I would go in and talk to the students in the ROTC programs, and especially the females.
So, what's some of your biggest advice when you see some of those young females who want to join the military but aren't quite sure? What would you say to them?
Um, Not just for the females, but even for the males. The military is not for everybody. So you have to decide that it's something that you want to do. Females in particular, it's going to be harder. There's a lot more things that they're going to have to face that most of the men have no concept of. So I've talked to them about some of those things.
Mhm.
They have to just really be sure that they want to do it. I tell them that they have to stay focused. And one of the ways that they have to stay focused is that with the ratio of males to females, they have their choice of men across the board to date, and I try to tell them that's not the reason that you're going in. That's not the reason that you join.
Right.
You join to serve your country. If you happen to meet a special person while you're in there, that's all fine and good, but that's not where the focus is. You need to make sure that you stay focused on the military career aspect, even if your military career is only 4 years.
Right.
It may be 4 years, it may be 30 years. That's up to you. But for whatever time you're there, you need to stay focused on your actual reason for being there.
That's some good advice. Very, very good advice. I guess for me personally, I almost look at it as two different Marine Corps because when I was in, doing my thing, I never came across, any female Marines, any co-ed units or anything like that. So, we were doing our thing. We go to Iraq, we come back, we train, we go back again, we do our thing. I only maybe was around in a unit when I went to supply for like the last 6 months before I got out, then that was, female and, men Marines. And I'm like, this is like so much different. Like, it's like, it was almost foreign to me. you know? But yeah, that's definitely a good piece of advice. Have you had any Marines come back and say, hey, woman or male, say, hey, thank you for the advice that you've given me, and I'm so glad I stood on, if you're in the Marine Corps, the yellow footprints, and just thank you for everything. Has anybody come back and share some experiences?
I've had a few of those, because if I know that there's someone that's going into basic training, I'll try to get contact information for them and write them while they're there, and I can pretty much tell them everything that's going through their head at that particular moment, and I let them know that all the thoughts that they're thinking are normal.
Yes.
You know, they aren't the first ones to ever think, why am I here? Why did I do this? Why am I putting myself through this?
uh,
And I pretty much just lay it out for them, and I let them know all those thoughts are normal. All those thoughts are thoughts that all of us have had, whether we actually spoke them or not, and the drill instructors are there to teach you things.
right.
And the things that they do are done for a reason, whether you understand it at that time or not. So look at it from the point of view that they are teaching you whatever they're teaching you, and that's your opportunity to just soak it all in like a sponge.
Right. Right. So as you move forward through your career in life, what's next for you? What do you got on your life chart here? Like, what else do you want to do?
Um, right now, I am working as a veteran service officer for one of the Indian tribes here in Arizona. I work for Gila River. I don't know how long I'll be there with them. I've only been with them now for about 4 or 5 months. So, I expect to be there for a number of years. I am a crafter. So I think that probably once I get to a point that I actually retire, I'll spend a lot of time crafting, possibly start a business from some of the different crafts that I do. Um, I think that even in retirement, I will probably continue to do the disability claims for veterans, surviving spouses, assist families with benefits, questions, whatever there is. Um, I have been fortunate to gain the knowledge and experience, and I don't see that that's something that's just going to instantly stop because I declare retirement.
Wow. Wow. Well, definitely thank you for your service. Thank you for your continued service. Thank you what you do for our veterans out there. Like I said, it's definitely needed. It is so refreshing to see somebody who just, has a heart of gold and who's out there just to do the right thing, that doesn't have any intention or push behind it, who just wants to see, veterans get what they deserve, or at least give aspiring people to join the military an honest opinion. So that's all we can ask, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So with that, I think we'll wrap it up. Again, like I said, thank you, Kim. She is phenomenal. If you guys like this podcast, you want to see these podcasts continue, again, like I said, like, share, and subscribe. This has been phenomenal, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you, Kim. God bless.
Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Awesome. Thank you.